the entire superstructure of Western civilization is going to crumble. I believe the entire superstructure of religio-political thinking is going to mutate rather soon. America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're not free or brave. We're ill-informed, entertained, and totally ignorant. And the powers that be on this earth are connected to that lineage going back thousands and thousands of years into a world that you have never known. Where is the United States? You ask any American today, where's the United States located? Well, that's silly. Oh, is this silly? You think so? Do you know where the United States is located? Because you need to understand there's a world of difference between United States and America as a country. In 1870s, 1878 to be exact, there was a privately owned corporation incorporated called United States Corporation. And it was stipulated in the corporation papers that anyone who would work for that particular corporation would be called a citizen, not an employee. It's a privately owned corporation. It was referred to as United States. So today, if you're conducting business in this country and someone asks you if you're a citizen of the United States, and you say yes, because you perceive the question is, are you lawfully in this country to do business? And you say yes. They didn't ask you if you were a citizen of America. They didn't ask you if you were lawfully in America. According to international maritime admiralty law, they ask you a question. Are you of your own volition, out of your own mouth, testifying that you are a citizen of the United States? The United States is a privately owned corporation. It's a privately owned company. And if you say, yes, I am a United States citizen, now that makes you an employee of a privately owned foreign corporation. The United States, the very word United States means, quote, the Philippines, American Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and the Northern Mariana Islands, period. So when you use the word United States, that's what it means. The corporation headquarters is in Washington, D.C. You also need to understand that Maryland is Mary land, and that Virginia gives us our word virgin or vagina. Virginia, virgin, Mary land. The two together is a center of power, Virgin Mary. Virginia, Mary land. What does this have to do with anything? Well, that's the center of power in America, under the Virgin Mary. You need to look at the Vatican. Once you begin to look at the Vatican, now it's going to get serious. Because you need to remember that the Pope has dominated Europe for some 1,600 years. And Europe has dominated the world for 1,600 years. And our American system is a Vatican system. We live under the Vatican in this country. The Vatican system, of course, is based on the ancient Roman system. And in Rome, the seat of power for Caesar was called Capitol Hill. And so every morning, Caesar would go up on the hill, Capitol Hill. Capital is a Latin word for money. You either have the capital or you don't. And consequently, in the Capitol Hill, Caesar would meet with the Senate. That's what we have, a Senate. The symbols of the ancient Roman Senate were two fasces crossed, the crossing of the fasces. That's the symbol of the United States Senate, crossing of the fasces. When you see the President of the United States standing and speaking to an audience in the room where the podium and then the Speaker of the House and the Vice President sit behind him, watch that on the news every night. Somebody's always making a speech in that room. when you see someone making a speech in that room, look on both sides of the podium. Don't get the person talking. Look at the symbols. For many will look with their eyes but not see, and will listen with their ears but not hear, and with the heart not get the sense of it. You need to open your eyes and look at the symbols on both sides of the podium, which is about an 8 or 9 foot high fascia, called a fascia, a bundle of sticks with a hatchet head, the symbol of royal power in Rome. Our system is under Rome. Doesn't matter what you think of the Roman Catholic Church. It doesn't matter what you think of the religion of the Roman Catholic Church. All you need to know is your country is dominated by the Pope, period. You've got a problem with that? Consequently, when you begin to look at this way our government operates and the words that are used and the symbols, you begin to see that the most powerful law in the world, and let me explain to you this. There are two basic kinds of law on the earth. One is called civil law. It goes back to a Latin word civili. The Ilies were, in the ancient world, the gods. Civili means the people of God. So we have something called civil law. Civil law is a law of the land. But in every country, the land is different. So that you can do things in America you can't do in Russia. You can do things in China you can't do in Africa. Because the civil law is based on the culture of the people who live on the land. But there's a far, far more powerful law that the kings and the powerful men of this planet live by. And it has nothing to do with civil law. It's called the law of water. Because on the earth there's only two things, land and water. There's 3 times more water than there is earth. So the law of water is 3 times more powerful than the law of civil law. It's called the law of the high seas, the law of water. This is why the Vatican is called the Holy See. The sea is considered holy by the masters of this planet, the waters of the earth. And consequently, based on that idea that the law of the sea is the most powerful law on the earth, it's referred to as banking law. The law of money is the law of the sea, the cash flow. And once you understand that you can get a credit card in China and use it in Africa, you can get open up a bank account in New Zealand and use it in Alaska. Why? Because it's banking. And now you're talking money. And consequently, money is run around the world in one operation. Banking is one thing. Once you understand that the law of the land is the people's law of their culture, but the law of money is called the law of water. This is why, incidentally, the Statue of Liberty could not be put on American land. It was put in a harbor, because the Statue of Liberty is a maritime admiralty symbol. It's a symbol of, it's called the Statue of Liberty, not the Statue of Freedom. There's a world of difference between freedom and liberty. Liberty means you ask your father if you can use the car. If he says no, you don't use it. Liberty is what a sailor gets when he pulls into harbor. He asks the captain if he can leave. If the captain says yes, and he most likely is not going to, but if he says yes, that means you have the liberty. You pull liberty. You don't have freedom. America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're not free or brave. We're ill-informed, entertained, and totally ignorant to the powers that be on this earth and how it works. But let me give you an example of how the law of water works. When you go into a court, why do you have to go to court? As I said, you play tennis and basketball on a court. The whole idea in a court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. So consequently, this team stands up and throws the ball at that team, and that team stands up and throws the ball back over there, and the judge sits here, and that's what he is, a judge. He's the referee. He doesn't care who wins or loses. Somebody's going to pay. And he's going to get paid, so he doesn't care who wins or loses. He's only there to make sure that the game is played correctly. It's called commerce. because the whole world is commerce. Look up the word commerce in a law dictionary. It'll tell you it's sexual intercourse. Marriage is a partner. Partner is a term that's used in business. And consequently, if your business with your partner doesn't work out, you're not going to God, you're going to court. And bring your check and your house and all your property with you, because it's just business, nothing personal. Consequently, I'll give you an example of how this works. When a ship pulls into harbor, you need to understand the concept behind international banking. As a matter of fact, the judge rules from a bench in a courtroom. He rules from the bench. He sits up higher so he can look down on you, and you can look up to the law. And he sits on a bench. The word bench is simply a Latin word for a bank, so he rules for the bank. This is why he wears a black robe. But because the black robe in ceremonial black robes represent the planet Saturn. Saturn is the god of law, order, and banking. The inhibitor, the one who can put you in jail, can inhibit your business. Saturn. He's referred to as Lord of the Rings. Hollywood's still making movies about Lord of the Rings, and Americans just love it and have no idea in the world what they're looking at. They're telling you something, but you're not listening. So Saturn is the Lord of the black robe. Judges wear black robes. Catholic priests wear black robes. Rabbis wear black robes. Used to, kids graduating from high school and university wear a black robe. Black robes are the robes of the planet Saturn. Saturn color was black. The god Saturn in the ancient Phoenician world was referred to as El, E-L. This is why if you're continuing today to worship the planet Saturn, you become known as an elder. How did you get to be an elder? You got elected with elections. Because you were elected, now you're one of the elites. You have become elevated. Consequently, words and terms are very, very interesting. Again, we go back to the court and back to maritime admiralty law, the law of banking. I want you to understand the concept behind banking. Banking is referred to, as I said, the law of water. An example is if a large ship from Japan pulls in and parks at the harbor. It's got $700 million worth of Toyotas or TVs on it. The ship was not here yesterday. It has come this morning, so it has manifested. So every single piece on that ship that's going to make money for somebody has to be accounted for. So the captain, which represents capital, money, the captain has to report to the port authorities all of the vital signs on every single thing sold and brought into this country. Is it a 4-door, 2-door? Does it have air conditioning, 6-cylinder, what? Every single piece has to have what is called a certificate of manifest. Because it wasn't here yesterday, it's manifested. So you have to have a certificate of manifest with all the vital signs on it. Why? Because it's money, and it has to be kept track of. And when the ship pulls in and parks, it sits in its berth. All ships are referred to as she. There's a reason why. The ship sits in her berth, and it's tied to the dock. Consequently, these items coming in on water. Money is changing hands. Maritime admiralty, banking law. Now, it's a curious fact that, in point of fact, when you were born, you came out of your mother's water. Her water broke. You came down the birth canal. And when her water broke, you came out and you were birthed, because the ship sits in her berth. It's birthing the ship. And consequently, you have to have a birth certificate. And if you're taking a car off the ship and it drops and falls, now you've lost money. But that's all right, because the system allows for breakage. So you have to have a death certificate. signed by the doc. The doc has to sign your death certificate, right? So you need to understand that you are a maritime admiralty product. You came out of your mother's water. You are a human resource. You need to understand the way banking and world government works. Again, I don't have any problem with this because there's no need to have a problem with it. This is the way the world has worked for at least 6,000 or more years. All I'm saying is that when you need to understand that words and terms and symbols are used in religion, churches. Why do you have Jews going to synagogue? In this country, it's spelled S-Y-N-A, synagogue. No, that's incorrect. In Israel, it's spelled correctly, S-I-N-A. In the ancient world, in Arabia, there was a mountain called the Mountain of the Moon, a mountain of the moon god. Even in Africa today, in Uganda, there's a mountain of the moon. The moon god in Arabia was called Sin, S-I-N. You can look that up in an encyclopedia. S-I-N was not doing something evil. It was the name of a god, the god of the moon, Sin. In the ancient Arabic language, Ai was a mountain. You put the two together, as the god of the mountain was Sin Ai, or Sinai. Mount Sinai is the god of the mountain, the moon god. This is why Moses was a leader of a lunar cult. In the Vatican and throughout Europe, Moses is pictured in sculpture and paintings with horns. These were the lunar horns. It's because the Jews celebrate their holy days after sundown. Well, of course, that's when the moon comes out. And consequently, the Bible even starts off in Genesis. This was the evening and the morning. So days are counted in the Jewish tradition from the evening to evening. Why? Because of Sin, Ai, or the god of the moon. Fascinating use of terms and words, as I said. You need to understand that once you begin to see how the laws and regulations of the world are put into place, the implication of the theological foundations of the world are so profoundly deep, go back so far into ancient history. You need to understand that the concepts in our mind of religion actually need to be, you need to define the terms where these things come from. Let's go back for a few moments to the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Again, why were the Nazis looking for the Lost Ark? Also, I don't know if any of you caught this in Indiana Jones, but there was a Frenchman leading the Nazis in their pursuit of the Lost Ark. What was this Frenchman all about? Why was he the authority and the Nazis were following him? Well, it has to do with something called the French Grand Orient Temple Masonry. It has to do with the French are not stupid either. As a matter of fact, France is probably the depository, the largest depository of the occult literature of the world in the Louvre Museum. The French have been for many, many centuries on top of the world of the occult, use of power, words and terms. This is why the French language has been the diplomatic language of use throughout the world. There's something going on in France. Paris is called the City of Lights. Paris comes from Paris, par-Isis. Par-Isis becomes Paris, the City of Lights, the illumination, intellectual, spiritual illumination. So again, Indiana Jones, why are the Nazis looking for the Lost Ark? Why are both the Americans and the Germans and the French looking for the Lost Ark in Egypt? What's going on in Egypt? What's going on in Sinai? There is a huge story yet to come out, and I believe that eventually the entire superstructure of Western civilization is going to crumble. That's my personal opinion. I believe the entire superstructure of religio-political thinking is going to mutate rather soon, and no one is going to be able to do anything about it, because there is, as I said before, a God force that is operating in the universe, and it has its own agenda. And consequently, I also believe, as an article of my faith, that there are very powerful men in this world, powerful people, who are on both sides of the spectrum, very powerful and very evil, and very powerful and very good. Because in all mankind is good and evil. And I believe that we are now seeing a struggle between the powers that have dominated this world for thousands of years. And I think that if you're going to be of any value to the human family, you had better start educating yourself to the spiritual implications and the spiritual dynamics of world politics. Who are you and where did you come from? And why are you here? And begin to look at the simple things of life. How did you even get here? What is the connection between water, electricity, and the human life? Where did we come from, and what is the ultimate goal of the creation of the human family? And consequently, you begin saying, my God, these are the same questions the great thinkers of the ages have been asking. Well, I think very soon the gods, the Elohim in the Hebrew, the gods, and again, this is I could talk about this stuff all night. In Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But that's not what it says in the original Hebrew. It doesn't say in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It says in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is plural. It's in the feminine and it's plural. It means more than one. And the second one, Genesis 1:2, is even more important. It says, and the earth was without form and void. No, that's not what it says in Hebrew. It says, the earth was without form and void. The correct translation was, the earth became a waste and a desolation. So, and the words is tohu vohu in Hebrew. Tohu vohu is only used twice in the Bible, in the Old Testament, only twice. Tohu vohu means became a waste and a desolation. In Genesis 1:2, it is used in Jeremiah, where the prophet Jeremiah says, I had a vision from God of the earth when it was a meeting place for the gods, and there was no man. And then tohu vohu, and then it became a waste and a desolation. You say, whoa, what are we talking about here? Jeremiah saw the earth when it was a meeting place for the gods, and then it became a waste and a desolation? The implications are horrendous. Because in Genesis 9:1, God says Noah and his family, after the flood, God says, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. And I've asked the rabbis and checked on it, and replenish the earth is correct. Re means do again. Why? Well, because everyone died in the flood, so you have to repopulate the earth. But go back to Genesis 2:28, where God is creating Adam and Eve, and he says the same exact words, go forth, multiply, and replenish the earth. Do it again. So what we're talking about is the same thing Jeremiah is talking about. Jeremiah says, I saw in a vision the earth when it was a meeting place for the gods, and then it became a waste and a desolation. I believe that there is no doubt in my mind that this world has been inhabited for perhaps millions of years, and the powers that be on this earth are connected to that lineage going back thousands and thousands of years into a world that you have never known. And somewhere along the line, I believe those powers are going to make themselves known to us. And when that happens, it's going to be an awesome event, because the way these entities, for lack of a better term, the way these gods work is that they're very slow. They're in no hurry. When you're in control, there is no need to be in a hurry. You don't have to impress anyone or show anyone anything. When you get ready to move, the world will know it. And I believe that this is exactly what is coming now. I believe we're getting ready to see the powers of this world shaken. The prophecies in the Bible are merely one of the many different prophecies, the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Toltecs of the Incas. My God, all over the world, the ancient texts have told us there's going to come a time when, in our language, in America, we would say, what goes around comes around. And I believe that the divine presence in the universe, these entities that the Hebrews have called the Elohim, the gods, I believe they're going to very soon make their presence known. I think that Hollywood has known that. I think that even the concepts that are given to us in the motion pictures and science fiction movies are trying to tell you something. I think that Area 51, May 1st, May Day, 5/1. What is May Day? Why did the communists celebrate May Day? It's because even the American military, when you're in trouble, it was a May Day call. What are you talking about, May Day? You better go back and look at symbols. You better go back and look at the words and terms on which this whole world is based. I think we're getting ready for a time in which the mutation of the human family is going to be orchestrated by the powers that have brought us here to start with. And we're going to come face to face with the gods. We're going to come face to face, there's no doubt in my mind, with a presence that is going to be overwhelming. I had such an experience. I had an epiphany of my own. I was out on the desert with two of my friends, north of Area 51, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was totally overcast. Couldn't see anything, turned the lights off in the car, and it's totally dark. We're 155 miles north of Las Vegas, 1 o'clock in the morning, out in the middle of nowhere. We get out of the car, and all of a sudden, just north of us, the clouds begin to open up, and two bluish-white glowing discs, the size that the moon would appear in the sky. Not a little light zipping across. The size that the moon appears. Two bluish-white discs came through the clouds, and as they came through the clouds, they illuminated the clouds above them. They were awesome, is the only word I can think of. Behind them, 5 more came in. 7 bluish-white glowing discs, the size that the moon appears, and I was frightened to death. The 2 people with me were acting like they saw Santa Claus for the first time. They jumped around and were delighted, they were happy, and I was frightened because I realized the implication of what I was seeing. I was born and raised in Gulf Breeze, Florida. At 8 years old, I was having entities in my bedroom. My whole life has been filled with other world experiences, but I have never personally been involved in anything like this. Spirits in my bedroom are one thing. This was frightening. I don't know who these people are or what they represent or what they're going to do here, but I'm getting out of here. And consequently, it was a frightening experience. 7 bluish-white discs hovered over us and began to maneuver around. And I believe that this was given to us as a prelude to something which is coming. So when I'm asked, do you believe in UFOs, I can answer truthfully, no. I don't need to. I've seen them. I've had too many experiences, as I said, from my childhood of 8 years old on up. I've had other world experiences. I've been involved in very strange and occult things which have happened, which are frightening. And that's why I have a legitimate fear of power. And that's why I don't mind submitting to people who are more powerful than I. I have no problem with that. I've even said to the gods that I'm willing to do whatever I'm supposed to do, but please don't abduct me. I don't want to go anywhere, and I don't want to wake up with something in my bedroom I can't handle. Don't frighten me. Don't frighten me. If I am to do something, then give me the work I am to do and show me what I am to do, and I will do the best to fulfill what my destiny is. But don't frighten me, because I am very frightened. I'm very, very fearful of the powers that rule this world, because they have the power of life and death in their hands. And I believe that they are picking individual people today according to their own design, according to their own agenda. And they are picking individuals today to help enlighten the whole human family. Because when they begin to make their move, they care nothing for what your views of anything are. They don't care what you think. They don't care how you view anything. You can have your own views of God. It doesn't matter. They're in charge. They've always been in charge. And when they get ready to make their move, you're going to know that what you thought was true wasn't true. And that's why when people say, well, all of this stuff about UFOs and extraterrestrials and paranormal is a bunch of bull, I always answer, you're probably right. You better hope to hell you're right. Because if you're wrong and you made a miscalculation and this world is inhabited by powers that are unseen, you better find out if that's true, and if it is, you better get in tune with it, because it's going to make its move soon. And I'm so convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we are in a time in which the human family, again, is going to mutate. It's going to come face to face with the powers that be. And there's going to be a change in the affairs of mankind. And I am frightened because of the implications of this, because we're not ready. We're not a very well-read people. We're not very open-minded. I remember, I don't even know if I brought this out before, but I'm reminded of a quote that says, always trust a person looking for the truth. Don't ever trust the one who's found it. Again, there is something going on. There is a profound significance to the people who are on the cutting edge of intellectual achievement today. The work of people like, the writers and the authors and some of the people that are here today are on the cutting edge of a whole new technology of science, a whole new technology of power, and I do believe that individuals have been chosen to help the rest of the human family to progress and wake up and prepare yourself for what's coming. Because there's no doubt in my mind, we're not going to continue the way we're going. We don't deserve freedom. We don't deserve to be treated as spiritual beings because we haven't acted like it. So, in concluding, I would like to say that one of the people I have had the pleasure of being in the company was Zachariah Sitchin. And Zach and I have talked about these things many, many times in private. I actually had a business deal with Zachariah. I wanted to do a 13-week miniseries with him. And he was all for it, and we halfway through the project and it fell through. But Zachariah is a very dear friend, and I did a private interview with Zachariah Sitchin. I said, Zach, I want to ask you my kind of questions. And so he agreed. And so I'm now making it available, a private interview that I did with Zachariah Sitchin. Again, I want to thank all of you for listening to me. I do tend to ramble, but the reason why is because my interests are so varied. I'm fascinated by law, money, government, religion, theology, symbols, emblems, national coats of arms, flags, harlotry, seals. I am fascinated with the world of the occult, the mystical world of power that has been around us from day one, and I think the human family is finally being brought into a position where we're going to see these things for the first time and appreciate the powers that be over us. And I want to thank you for being with me.